Mr. Speaker, I rise this morning in defense of Governor Gavin Newsom, who recently defied his own idiotic COVID edicts as he partied at one of the few restaurants that's not yet been forced out of business. I defend him because he was doing what we once all did in a free society, make our own decisions over what risks we're willing to run and what precautions we're willing to take according to our own circumstances to protect our own health. Yes, COVID is a nasty bug, and 250,000 Americans have died while having it. But this isn't the bubonic plague. The CDC's best estimate is that if you're under 49, your chance for surviving COVID, if you get it, is 99.92%. Even if you're over 70, you have a 94.6% rate of recovery. 40% who get it don't even know they have it. And yet we've allowed our officials to ruin our quality of life over it, destroying countless businesses, throwing tens of millions into unemployment, robbing our children of their educations, and shredding our most cherished rights as Americans. Governor Newsom's night of partying should be a wake-up call for every American. Every time we step outside our homes, the risks that we face multiply. A free society assumes that its citizens are competent to assess those risks, balance them against the avoidance costs, and to manage their decisions in a generally responsible way. It's called common sense, and it's a necessary prerequisite for self-government and liberty. The choice of an octogenarian with emphysema might be very different from those of a healthy governor of California. Only a fool would claim the omniscience to make an informed judgment for every person in every circumstance in every community. Yet sadly, this crisis has revealed that fools abound in public office and that a fool with power can quickly become a petty tyrant. Which brings us back to Governor Newsom. These government nannies love to tell us that they're just following the science. Well, what does the science actually tell us? It tells us that COVID poses virtually no risk to children, but can be severe among the elderly. So what did these lockdown leftists do? They closed all the schools and ordered infected patients into nursing homes. The science tells us that outdoor transmissions of the virus are extremely rare and that 80% of infections occur in people's homes. So what did these lockdown leftists do? They closed our beaches, parks, and campgrounds and ordered people to stay at home. The science tells us that obesity is a contributing factor to the severity of the disease. So what did these lockdown leftists do? They closed all the gyms and kept the liquor stores open. These lockdowns haven't saved lives. The states with the most stringent lockdowns generally have the highest mortality rates from COVID. Utah stayed open while next door Colorado shut down. Utah currently has half the COVID mortality rate and 3/4 the unemployment rate as Colorado. But the lockdowns have cost countless lives, from suicides, drug and alcohol abuse, domestic violence, and deferred health screenings and treatments. Recently, Governor Newsom demanded that restaurant diners replace their masks after every bite, but also minimize the times they're taken off. I guess that means you take really big bites. Thanksgiving dinners are allowed in California, but only when they're held outside, guests are seated 6 feet apart, and they last no more than 2 hours. Now, it's all right to use the bathroom, but only if it's frequently sanitized. Otherwise, presumably, you'll just have to use the bushes. And for God's sake, no singing. I've wondered how much longer the American people are going to tolerate this nonsense. So let us not criticize Governor Newsom. Perhaps he's just offered us all deliverance from his own folly. Nor should we criticize the California legislators who ignored travel and quarantine restrictions to junket in Hawaii. Nor should we ridicule Speaker Pelosi for choosing not to wear a mask in a hair salon that was forced to close for the rest of us. Good for them. They're demonstrating by their actions the freedom that every American citizen needs to reclaim from these very same people. The governor should make his own decisions about running his own life. I only ask that he and his ilk would stop telling the rest of us how to run ours. I yield back.
You want to get high, man?
Let's stimulate your mind.
Get up, Chucky! What have we got here? A fucking comedian.
Rojan Kim.
Hello, and welcome to the Rojan Kim cast. It's me, Rojan Kim. That was long for a cold open, I admit it, but I thought it was important. That was Representative Tom McClintock, a Republican congressman from the state of California. Democrats may just call him a Nazi. That's fine. A Nazi for advocating everything he said, even though everything he said was completely reasonable, right? Follow the science. The party of follow the science doesn't seem to, right? Follow the science by ignoring it. That's what we say. Follow the science. Yeah, so I'm sure you know in the news it's saying COVID is spiking. COVID is going out of control. LA is going back to lockdowns. I'm in Denver currently, where they've just outlawed indoor dining. New York will be locking down soon. The whole country will be locking down. Everybody's locking down again because the first time it totally worked, didn't it? Remember how we locked down the last time? They said 2 weeks we need to do it for this to control the spread. And then they're like 4 weeks, 6 weeks with a mask, everybody. We should be crushing the virus. We should be crushing it. And then it doesn't get crushed. And then, you know what? Let's do it again. I put up a great deal of information on my stories for those of you who are following my stories and giving me some encouragement on the side. I really appreciate that. That's cool. And, you know, hey, listen, I'm not a Trumpian person. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a Trump supporter, whatever. I hate team shit. I don't like the team stuff in politics. Like, I'm not on the red team, I'm not on the blue team, but I think it's important that since we are in the middle of something scientific, right? I mean, supposedly we are using science to guide our hand in all these policies. All this science is also freely available, right? Freely available. And of course, that's where I run into some problems. First of all my posts on Instagram are now labeled with little disclaimers like I'm Trump, for God's sake. It's like I'm Trump. This has information about COVID-19. Yeah, it does. It's actual real information, though, that I'm putting up. So what am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about, first of all, let's just go with Los Angeles, right? Los Angeles has decided it's going to shut down outdoor dining, even though outdoor transmission is incredibly rare. I found a series of data put together online on that was a breakdown, and all this information is freely available because it's public health information. And basically, it was like a breakdown of all the confirmed cases of COVID in Los Angeles. Okay. And broken down by, let's say, I guess it's industry. Yeah, we'd say it's industry, right? And what do we find? Well, what we find is that of all, so let me see. Here we go. Out of the 204 outbreak locations with 2,249 confirmed cases, only 8 were from non-staff. And this is from restaurants and bars. So restaurants and bars, there's been 2,249 confirmed cases, only 8 were from non-staff, meaning people, the public, right? So the people who are getting sick in the areas in LA County where they're finding them, they're actually people who work there. And let's break it down. Here's the top 4 places where people are getting COVID. Grocery stores, 15%, food distribution, 11.3%, manufacturing, 10.1%, automotive, 7.39%, government, 7.27%. See that? Let me find restaurants. Restaurants, 3.1%. When it comes to gyms are under 1%. Hotels, churches, under 1%, yet those are the things shut down. Restaurants are shut down. Why are restaurants shut down, right? Why are they shut down? Now, everybody, of course, believes that, like, well, if it's being shut down, it must be for a good reason, right? It must be for a good reason. We must be following the science. And, of course, those who bleed blue, a lot of the people, and it's not just like a partisan thing, I think, because it's very hard, I think, to argue now that the media, the corporate media, is completely unbiased and is presenting information to the public without any, agenda on their own, right? I mean, it seems like they're partisans. It seems like, obviously they are anti-Trump. Obviously they have some agenda in pushing the narrative that they're pushing, that COVID is dangerous. COVID is spread asymptomatically. You're at danger. Everybody's in danger. Don't go home. Don't see your family. Everybody isolate themselves. This is the best way to do it. Just like we did back in March. Like, we should do that again because that's what happened, right? Right. Well, here's the whole thing. The logic. Let's just talk about this logically, because I did get into it with a couple people online, because I posted this information, and I'm a dangerous guy because I'm not even posting information that's like, don't use masks or slavery or anything like that. Nothing crazy. Just like I did with that restaurant information. That's just data, right? The same data everybody's saying they're using to shut us down. This is the data right here. In fact, one of the few newspapers that kind of called attention to this was the Denver Post, right? Who criticized the lockdowns in Colorado as not following science, but politics. And I think that's what it comes down to. It's all politics, right? I think that's what it really comes down to. Just like, the Representative McClintock there said, he was talking about how the most heavily locked down areas are actually the ones that are hardest hit. He mentioned Utah and Colorado, right? Utah is doing much better than Colorado, even though they don't have the same type of restrictions that Colorado has. Well, what does that mean? So the people arguing with me, basically what they say is, well, that just tells us that people aren't complying. They're not complying with the masks. They're not complying with the lockdowns. And I guess that makes sense, but that makes sense if you believe that these lockdowns and mask mandates work no matter what. They're like, a lot of times I hear the same thing kind of repeated at me. We know they work. It's just people need to follow. We know they work, but we don't know they work. We don't know they work. This is an unprecedented situation. We don't know they work. So we're looking at data as it comes out to see if it works or not. The problem with the logic of saying masks work, but the reason you're seeing a spike in cases, even though people are mandated to put on masks, is because people aren't putting on masks. You see the problem there? It's called begging the question. It's a logical fallacy. You're assuming the conclusion. So you're basically saying masks work, and if there's evidence that they don't work, it must be because people aren't using masks. So there you see the flaw there. Then it's just like, well, how can we ever ascertain if they actually work or not if we're just going with the assumption they do work? What's the point of even finding it? Just have everybody wear them. Fuck it. But what if you found out that they were bad for you? What if you found that out, right? I mean, I don't know. I feel like, look, you can imagine I've had arguments with people in person, people online. A lot of times they are very democratic. They're Democrats, A lot of times they believe that their party is the good side and the other side is bad. Their side is the one who loves life and decency, while the other side is evil and wants to kill people. The other side is a death cult and theirs is the good side. Honestly, if you talk to people on the right, it's pretty much the same. They think the Democrats are a death cult. They think they want to crash the economy, kill everybody, go to war. Both sides believe the other is a death cult, essentially. The left believes the right are Nazis. The right believes the left are commies, and round we go. Nazis versus commies. Here we go again. It's the goddamn 20th century again. We can't come up with anything new. It's been 100 years, and this is it. We're same fight. Commies versus Nazis. Okay, great. It just seems like, scientifically what we're being shown is that the lockdowns do not work. Okay? Lockdowns do not work. The masks don't seem to be working. All right. Chart after chart. Okay. That's all we can do is look at the data, right? Chart after chart, you can plot where mask mandates begin and then cases begin spiking. Mask mandates begin, cases begin spiking. Shouldn't you see some reduction in any of this? I got my eyes opened or red pilled onto this by Tom Woods. Follow Tom Woods if you want to get some cogent and sort of like level-headed reasoning behind a lot of this lockdown stuff, because Tom Woods is not a maniac. He's not an Alex Jones figure. He's not particularly a partisan, even though he is a libertarian. Like, he's not, particularly crazy, but he is looking at the data. Chart after chart, chart after chart, chart after chart. Every single state that has a mask mandate, you can see cases spike. Again, the people who are so pro-mask that they don't believe the evidence as is presented to them, they say, well, obviously people aren't using them, and that's why. Okay. Well, so then now we have this Dan Mask study that came out, right? The Dan Mask study came out I think it followed around 4,000 or 6,000 people in Denmark, asked them to wear masks. The other half didn't wear masks, and then they found out that 1.8% of people in the masked group got COVID, and then or tested positive for it. It's not the same. And then 2.1% in the masked group also tested positive for COVID. In the end, it was within the margin of error for both, as there was no statistical significance found between both groups. And so the conclusion wasn't don't wear masks. It's just that the conclusion is it's impossible to tell if they actually work or not. Okay? Now, of course, there's a lot of criticisms of the study. A lot of people are saying, there are all these things you couldn't control for. There was non-compliance. There was this, there was that. Yeah, but you know what? That's one of the best studies we got, and it's because it's conducted out in the real world. We have a lot of studies conducted in laboratory settings that say that, like, ooh, masks block this and masks block that, and there's a lot of anecdotal stuff of, like, a guy was on a plane with a mask and he didn't get COVID, and then he did test positive, but he didn't give it to anybody. Like, all that stuff is sort of used to say, like, this is the evidence that masks work. But then when you're actually presented with, like, peer-reviewed studies, actual science, that is also evidence that masks may not work, then that is summarily dismissed, right? Disinformation, or the study is flawed, or obviously people didn't comply. You know what I mean? Like, so that's what it is. It's begging the question. People are begging the question. People are basically saying they do work, and if there's any evidence that shows it doesn't work, then obviously people aren't complying. I mean, the easiest thing to ask these people is that, okay, then what evidence would you need to show that maybe they don't work? I mean, we have to go, you know what I mean? Like, otherwise, if there's nothing you can ever be shown that will help you understand that maybe they don't work, it just means that it's religious at that point. At that point, it's a religion. And that's why a lot of people are saying the mask stuff is a cult. It's very cultish, right? It's like you put it on, you believe in it, you bend the knee, and that's it. No questions asked. Don't ask any questions. But I think questions need to be asked because it's a novel virus. It's a novel respiratory phenomenon. We're doing what we can. We're trying to do what we can. We're trying to figure it out. What if you learn that masks actually were bad? I mean, chart after chart after chart shows that every time you put in a mask mandate, it goes up. Maybe isn't it equally probable? I mean, everybody's saying, no, masks work, so obviously people aren't using them. What about the opposite? What about that masks might make things worse? And that's what we're seeing. We're actually seeing evidence of that. I mean, if anything, the charts follow that logic, that maybe for some reason masks make people less careful. Maybe for some reason masks make people think that, it makes it hard to tell who's sick and who's not, so then you can't actually isolate from each other. Because in Asia, typically, it isn't that everybody wears masks, it's that sick people wore masks, so everybody knew that you should stay away from the sick person. If a sick person needed to go out, they would wear a mask so that they wouldn't get other people sick, okay? That makes sense. A lot of people point to the Asian countries, Tokyo, who didn't have a mask mandate or a lockdown, and at first they were like, look, see, they're gonna get screwed by the virus, and then they didn't, and then everybody was like, ooh, we should be like Tokyo. South Korea, China, all these countries, Vietnam, Taiwan, basically, everybody's saying they did a great job with lockdowns, they did a great job with this and that and this, But one of the theories I'm hearing, which I believe, is that maybe East Asians have some immunity. Maybe the virus might have run through Asia first, and that's why there's a lot more people who have immunity. Maybe SARS-1 gave people immunity. I mean, there's a lot of research, science to do to figure out what's actually going on. We're not going to know what's actually going on until years from now, until a real post-mortem is done, right? So anybody who tells you they know what's going on, anybody who tells you we know this and we know that, it's bullshit. Total lies, okay? There's a lot of people online who are so confident. There's a lot of people who are, you know why? Because it's fear, right? We're all being made to be completely afraid of our own shadows, afraid of everybody else, afraid of just being breathed on, afraid of people, just fear. And in the face of fear, we need certainty. So we grab onto things. We say masks, they work. It's something you can do. And it makes total sense because in the face of a virus, we feel helpless. Especially with the media telling us that there's asymptomatic transmission. Everybody's dying. Everybody's going to die. However, I mean, just look at the actual data and look at what Tom McClintock was saying. Yeah, we got over 250,000 people dead. Okay? That's sad. That sucks. I mean, we should suss out who's actually dead from COVID. We should actually see. I mean, isn't it strange that flu, there's like no cases of flu all of a sudden? Isn't that strange? I mean, a lot of things are strange, right? A lot of things are strange. So, but let's just take that data at face value. I'm not going to play the game, because that's the game. You just go, oh, that data is not right. You just go, that data is not right. It's just like when you're presented with data that doesn't agree with your conclusion, you go, that data is not right. But that's not science. You understand that that's not science, right? You understand that nothing in science is actually set. There's no, like, scientists know. No, science doesn't work that way. Science is actually, it's like peer-reviewed. It has to be tested, then retested, and frequently. And that's the whole point of science. That's why science has worked, because it's open to debate. Once it's not open to debate, then it's dogma. It's religion, right? It's propaganda. And that's the whole thing. So, there was also a French study, peer-reviewed study, 160 countries, and they found that there was no discernible difference between the countries that locked down and didn't lock down. And in fact, what seemed to make the difference was individual choice, individual hygiene, individual health, all these little things that basically, that make sense in the context of any risk-taking in this world. Any risk-taking in this world is based on a series of calculations. Look, when you drive, you have the chance of death, right? When you fly, with anything, you have the chance of death minus the disease. You can get a disease anywhere. You can get a disease just sitting at home with a mask on. You could still get sick, okay? And that perhaps is the harrowing truth that most people, it just doesn't sit right, that no matter what you do, you might still get it, right? So wearing a mask, locking down, like all these things make you feel like, oh, I'm doing something. But you might not be, okay? You might not be, and you might be making it worse. Isn't that possible as well? Sitting at home, drinking, being depressed and stressed. Do you think that's good for you? Think that's good for your immune system? Listen to Joe Rogan go on and on and on about, why aren't they telling us about supplementation, exercise, fixing your immune system? Why aren't they telling us that? Why not? Why not? Think about that. Why not? Could it be because there is no interest in actually helping people get better? Because if you really think about it logically, wouldn't they have given us health care in the middle of a pandemic? Why not offer everybody free health care? I mean, look, the election, I guess, is over. Some people are saying. Some people, it's not over until December 14th when the Electoral College votes. We're still kind of in the air about that. I'm kind of stepping out of it. I'm not saying anything, but I don't necessarily believe that it's done and done. You know what I mean? But let's just say it is. Let's say it's done. So Biden won, but did he win by a huge margin? Was there a blue wave like everybody predicted? Was there a repudiation of Trump and Trumpism like everybody predicted? No, in fact, the House lost. The House lost a bunch of seats to Republicans. The Senate is hanging in the balance, and honestly, the margin that Biden may have won by is not that much. Something like 73 million to 70 million. You know what I'm saying? It's pretty close. It's not, So it shouldn't be that close. So imagine if Biden offered health care to everybody. He could have swept the whole thing. We wouldn't be doing this thing right now where Trump's either trying to run out the clock to get to the House of Representatives or whatever the plan is, right? Whatever the plan is, if you had just offered health care to everybody, you don't think you would have just won in a complete landslide? So then, again, goes back to the question, right? The Democrats are the party of compassion and decency and following the science. Why aren't they offering health care? They were the ones who always offered health care. Why aren't they offering it? Why don't they just give everybody free health care? Give everybody a debt jubilee, free health care, take care of everybody. Why not? Could it be because their interest isn't really the health of the people? Could it be that their interests lie somewhere else? Perhaps with, corporations, big business, insurance companies, things like that. Larger entities than just the public, right? Perhaps. I don't know. I'm just a human being. I'm probably going to get put in some kind of cage. I'm probably going to be dragged away. I'm not an anti-masker, so I'll wear the mask. I'll bend the knee. I'll do whatever. But I'm not gonna repeat lies. Okay, I'm not gonna pretend I can't see. I'm not gonna pretend that I can't look at numbers and look for myself. I'm not gonna pretend that I don't see dead bodies choking the streets. I don't see that. That people are still thriving despite the fact that for almost 9 months now they've been crushed to nothing. Right? No jobs, no nothing. But still, here we are. Still, people danced in the street when Joe Biden won, or maybe he didn't win. And those same people will probably burn down the streets when it goes the other way, possibly. Who knows? Nobody knows. But here's the thing. You can look it up for yourself. You can just look it up for yourself. Look up. Let's see. I'm trying to find who is. Tom Woods. Go to Tom Woods. he'll point you in the right direction of all these charts made by, and you don't have to be a goddamn epidemiologist or some kind of infectious disease specialist to plot data on a graph and look for any kind of association. Because, listen, if masks ultimately really worked, you would see the desired effect. Okay, you would see it, compliance or not. You would see something. Instead, over and over, what we're seeing are rises. The other thing we're seeing is in places that didn't lock down, like Sweden, Florida, South Dakota. These are all bad. Georgia, you can see that it's not that different. It's not that different. The rises in cases, any of that, it's not that different between places that have locked down and places that haven't. In fact, like I said earlier, if anything, what we're seeing is that the places that lock down have more cases than the places that don't. Could it be because of density? Sure. But when they correct, that's why what they do, what these charts do is equalize everything by population, per 1 million or per 100,000. That way you can control for things like population density and things like that. And over, it's the same. Okay, over and over. And I'm not saying this proves anything. Again, not saying this proves anything. All I'm saying is that, and what Tom Woods is saying, and the people who plot this stuff, what they're saying is that if they do indeed work as assuredly as you're saying, why aren't we seeing the cases get crushed? Why aren't we seeing that? Even Asia right now is getting a bump up in cases. Could it be because that respiratory viruses follow seasonal patterns, and because it's wintertime, just like with cold and flu, there's waves that come in spring and spring. It's like there's a spring and sort of winter wave, right? There's like a kind of a spring and fall kind of thing going on. Could that be why? No, they say, no, it's because people aren't paying attention. People aren't complying. It's because half the country voted for Trump and they all want us to die, all right? It's batshit. That's completely insane, okay? It's completely insane, but people do believe this. Here in Colorado, out in LA, out in New York, people do believe this. And in some ways, they have to. They have to believe it because the alternative is actually pretty harrowing. The alternative is that the governments all across the country were willing to destroy the lives of people. We're willing to destroy small businesses and restaurants. We're willing to destroy the health of people in the name of saving people from a disease that kills mostly people in bad health. I mean, logically, does that make any sense? No, it doesn't. Now, how do we make sense of all this stuff? I think the way we make sense of it is that it's not health, it's not science, but rather political, economic. I personally think that makes more sense. I mean, and again, this is not, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not like saying, ooh, this is it's all kind of laid out in the open. It's not like a giant mystery. First of all, I haven't posted this stuff yet, but I'm probably going to do this tomorrow maybe. But it's about the Great Reset. You may have heard the Great Reset. The Great Reset. I put up a little video where Justin Trudeau says, now it's time for the Great Reset. It's World Economic Forum, Great Reset. Google it. Oh, it's right there. It's right there. What they want to do. They want to create a cashless society. They want to reimagine the economy. They want to make everything mobile. They want to make everything so that nobody owns anything, right? You don't own any. Everybody does Uber. Everything is app-based. Everybody's, sort of connected through this massive surveillance state, through this, through mobile technology. They're using COVID now to, track people. They're also using racism as a way of tracking people. It's just all about tracking everybody, tracking everything every single time. Giant corporations own everything. Nobody actually has autonomy because we're all tied into the system. And soon they'll be getting rid of cash as well, because cash is one of the things that you can have. Look, having your own car and having your own cash is halfway to freedom, right? Take that away, and what do you got? Right? Isn't that a coincidence that most restaurants are cash businesses? Most of these businesses being shut down are cash businesses. The people who live check to check, or not even that, in restaurants, they live from tip to tip. They live daily getting cash from people, and that's what they live off of, and that's been taken away from them. No UBI, no unemployment, no stimulus, no nothing, right? A lot of politics. They're saying, ooh, the Democrats want this, the Republicans want that. We can't agree. They won't agree. Pelosi, McConnell. Okay, yeah, these are motherfucking rich people who are fine, okay? Meanwhile, all the poor, the middle class, Small business owners, they're suffering. They're suffering. And on top of that, they're being told to stay at home. And on top of that, they're being told it's their fault. It's your fault that COVID is on the rise. It's your fault you want a livelihood. It's your fault you don't want to commit suicide from having no hope. It's your fault you don't want to sit home and become an alcoholic. It's your fault that you want to exercise outside without a mask on. It's all your fault. It's your fault. Right? None of our fault. It's not our fault. It's not our fault we overstepped our bounds. It's not our fault that we put sick people in nursing homes and then made half the deaths in New York come out of nursing homes. It's not our fault. It's your fault, right? And that's the whole thing. Just like Gavin Newsom, right? It's not my fault. I was at French Laundry hanging out with the California Medical Association, the medical board, talking so loudly they had to close the doors at one of the most expensive, exclusive restaurants in the country that doesn't have to shut down because they cater to the rich. Right? Never mind any of that, right? You, the poors, you, the middle class, it's your fault. You have to follow the rules. You have to follow the rules. That's what's going on, right? So disease or not, that's the fight. Disease or not, it's like how much is the government allowed to be unconstitutional in the name of protecting us? Because isn't that what happened in 9/11? Isn't that how we got the Patriot Act and the National Defense Authorization Act, where anybody can be detained indefinitely because they think you're a terrorist? Right? It's just a hop, skip, and a jump away from using that for, say, I don't know, drug laws, which they did, and another hop, skip, and a jump away for using that for health laws, which I think is going to come. You can use the pandemic as an excuse to arrest noncompliance. You could to penalize noncompliance, to penalize anybody who says I'm standing up. You could be like, oh, that person's trying to kill everybody, get them, and because of that, we can just detain them. You don't even have a law. You don't even need a law. Don't need a law. What law are they breaking? Nothing. Just detain them. Just detain them. And then the crazy thing is, the people who are on the side of this, they're begging for it. They are begging for laws. I remember I asked a friend, like, did you hear about all the stuff Newsom said, about Thanksgiving? And she was like, yeah, I wish there were more rules, right? People just want rules so they can feel safe. And then really gives you the inkling and insight to how things like Nazi Germany, Stalinist Russia, Maoist China, all these places, how they went down. You could see that this is how it goes down. People just beg for the state to save them under the threat of something, and then evil commences, right? The greatest evil is done in the name of good, right? I believe that most evil that's been done in the world, the North Korean gulag, all of that, people don't think that they're evil. People think they're doing good. This is for the people, the benefit of the people. This is why we're doing it, and the individual no longer matters. So if you resist, we have to take you away because it's not a good look. That's what they say. It's not a good look. Have you ever noticed that on the left, especially, that things are all aesthetic? It's all aesthetics. Wearing the mask, it's a good look. Don't wear the mask, not a good look. You're a bad person. Look at the whole thing with Rudy Giuliani doing the press conference with the hair dye running down his head, which is hilarious. I mean, come on, don't get me wrong. Hilarious, but that is not an actual argument as to refute anything he's saying. So there's no claims being refuted. It's just, look at this guy, he's crazy. And that's basically what it is. If you're an anti-masker, you're crazy. You're QAnon, dude. That's just dismissive, right? These are all ad hominem attacks. These are all logical fallacies. Another logical fallacy on top of begging the question. Ad hominems, right? And that is what's being committed by the party of science, right? The party of science commits logical fallacies and doesn't follow the science. The party of decency doesn't offer health care to people in the middle of a pandemic crisis, and it doesn't offer any economic aid. That's the party of compassion, okay? At least the Republicans, all right, fine. They're fucking Nazis, I guess. I mean, that's the other thing. It's like, well, now we're supposed to believe you guys, the guys who seem to be hypocrites. Maybe they're not Nazis, right? This is what's driven me to listen to Steve Bannon's podcast. I listen to his podcast and I'm like, okay, first of all, he's not a dumb guy. Very smart guy. But at the same time, I don't, believe him either. Like everything he says, he's obviously a Trump guy and whatever. So he's partisan. That's fine. But at the same time, what I'm listening for is the white supremacy, the dog whistles, the Nazi stuff, the whatever. And I'm not hearing any of that. I don't hear it. Maybe is it because I'm so brainwashed? Is it because I'm so See, there we go. That's begging the question again. See? He is a Nazi, and if you don't think he's a Nazi, then clearly you're one or you've been brainwashed. And that's the same thing with systemic racism. Yes, there's systemic racism, and if you find any example where there isn't one or you don't agree, then you must be part of that system. You must be racist as well, right? It's commie bullshit. That's all it is. It's communist. It's basically, I know I sound like, what am I, Reagan? No, but seriously, it's a groupthink. It's a type of groupthink. It's a type of thinking that demands your compliance, your bending of the knee, and you're going along with the rest of the group, or else you're an undesirable, or else you need to be removed, or else you have COVID, right? And you need to be taken away. You need to be removed, and that's where we are. So I was going on about the Great Reset for a second, about how, they're aiming for a cashless society. It's all there. I'm going to post a lot of this stuff up so you could see for yourself. It's not a conspiracy. It's pretty, they've literally said that the pandemic is an opportunity to accelerate, these plans that they've had since, I don't know, I think it's been 10 years. And this is all like what they call the Party of Davos, right? The World Economic Forum, the 0.01% of the world that gets together and decides, hey, how do we run the world, right? And essentially what they decided on is let's make it a form of neo-feudalism, because the wealth disparity is growing so much. What we're going to have is a bunch of peasants in the end. It's just going to be a bunch of peasants, very few rich people. What are we going to do about them? Let's just dump money on them, debase the currency, have them own nothing, and then we'll have this giant underclass that has to be managed in some way. Maybe a war. Maybe that's what we need. More war. I mean, with Biden coming in, that sounds like what it's going to be, right? More war. Biden has brought in neoconservatives from the Bush era, good old warmongers. He's brought them all in, and we'll probably go back to war. Except, this time our planes will have Black Lives Matter on it, and that'll be great. One of the things that's telling is the appointment of Janet Yellen as the possible Secretary of Treasury. Janet Yellen was the former chair of the Fed, meaning money printer go brrr. That's what it is. Money printer go brrr. Look at the stonks. Look at stonks rising on the Dow broke 30,000 for the first time. Tesla has jumped up to $500. It was at $400 for the longest time. It's now $500. Palantir, right? Palantir, which is the name of the crystal ball that Saruman was using in Lord of the Rings to communicate with Sauron and to look around all of Middle Earth. That's the name of this company that's providing big data to businesses. It used to provide data for the war on terror, and now it's providing data for businesses. Their stocks going through the roof. Stocks are going through COVID vaccines, right? Regeneron, Gilead, all these the Remdesivir, Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, Moderna, all these companies, boom, going up, right? People are just pouring money into it. Okay. Crypto's going huge. Bitcoin has just crossed 19,000, guys. Fucking Ethereum's at 600. Litecoin is at 90. Ripple hit 90 cents and is now like hosting around 70, which is still about 3 times more than it was like a couple weeks ago. So there is a big old parabolic rise in stocks and crypto. Meanwhile, metals sank all the way down. Gold is taking a precipitous drop all the way down to 1,800, which actually a lot of gold people wanted. They wanted to see it. They thought that would be healthy. In fact, stocks and crypto probably are in a situation where it's pretty dangerous because it's getting so high that it might be a bubble as well. It might pop. Okay, so if you've got money in crypto and any of that, just be careful is all I'm saying. Don't go all in. Don't go all in, and if you do, pull it out. Pull out. That's my advice to you. If you go all in, pull out. Otherwise, put some money into metals because they're super cheap right now. It's all going to be a balancing act. It's going to go up. It's going to go down. It's going to go up. It's going to go down. The stocks themselves, though, I feel like I don't know how sustainable this is. I mean, the Federal Reserve does just pour money into stocks, but don't be surprised if there's a big old crash that wipes out regular day traders, regular Robinhood users, just the average Joe Schmo who's been putting money into the market because of the lockdowns, having nothing to do, hoping that taking their stimulus money and putting it into stocks will make them some money. All those people are going to get fucked, okay? Prices are going to get driven way down, and then all the institutional money, the people with all the money are going to come in when it's cheap, buy it back up. That's what happened to houses. Okay, that's just common sense in a way. It's actually is completely logical. You let the market fall precipitously, and then you wait, and you come in and scoop it all up if you've got the dough. Okay, so that's where we're at. We're at a place right now where reality is bifurcated, where logic, the people who claim to be on the side of logic and science and reason, are committing logical fallacies, are cultishly telling you to accept facts that aren't necessarily true, forcing you to pick sides, politicizing everything. And that's where we're at. And not to say that the other side isn't as bad. Not to say that the right isn't bad. I'm not saying one side is better than the other. I'm not one of those people. I'm not one of those people that's like, clearly one side is good and the other is bad. I'm not saying that. It's just that you also have to admit that one side is overwhelmingly part of the mainstream media, okay? It seems that the media itself is overwhelmingly on the side of Biden, overwhelmingly on the side of lockdowns, overwhelmingly on the side of war, okay? Overwhelmingly on the side of not giving anybody health care. Don't know why. Well, I do. Great Reset. It's all about the Great Reset, guys. I mean, and this is not like an Epstein thing, which is also real. This is not me talking about JFK. It's not aliens, moon landing, Bigfoot, none of that. It's in plain sight, okay? It's not a conspiracy. It's in plain sight. World Economic Forum, Great Reset. They may change that because of the marketing. Maybe it was too strong, the words, the Great Reset or whatever, but it's out there, okay? It's out there. So, anyways, you're like, Rojan, you're out there. You're out there, man. Whatever, man. Whatever, I'm just fighting a good fight. I have the documents. I have the documents. All right, I'm sorry. I guess I'll wrap up here for now. It's Thanksgiving week. Are you listening to the government and staying home alone and zooming into your family to save their lives? Is that what you're doing? Are you preventing yourself from traveling across states to save lives? Are you saving lives? Are you saving lives? Are you? Okay. All right. Well, good for you. Good for you. You're good, right? You feel like you're one of the good guys. Your tax money isn't going to bomb kids overseas or starve them with sanctions. None of that's happening. It's that you're saving lives. You're a good person. You're a good person. Maybe that's overrated. I don't know. Maybe being good is overrated. Nowadays, I feel like when people go, oh, yeah, so you're just okay with 250,000 people dying? I just feel like saying, yeah, now. I'm like, yeah, I'm okay with it. I mean, people need to die. They do. There's too many people. We are slaughtering people overseas. That's that's like 1/10 of the people we killed overseas. I think it's fine. I think we could take a little hit, okay? And you're like, well, what if your family was the one who died? Yeah, that sucks. I know that. I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want to die either. But you know what? I'm gonna. That's the thing. Nobody wants anything bad to ever happen, but that's not possible. And we are inflicting all kinds of bad on people everywhere in this country and outside of the country all the time. So, okay, whatever. I mean, that might be life. Maybe the nature of life is that it is cruel, it is short, but also that there's people, family, things like that. Family that they're trying to get you not to see, right? I mean, maybe that is, they're trying to take the most important things in people's lives, the most important things that keep them healthy, sound, social connections, exercise, work, livelihood, taking all these things that make people healthy and taking them away. And then at the same time, they're being fed fear. Also go drink and get high, but fear. And then politics, Nazis everywhere. Fear, racists, Nazis, systemic, blah. Meanwhile, we're not going to help. So, I don't know. You decide. You're an individual, right? You're an individual, but remember, you also have a family. So the family, more and more, I'm believing that the family is the unit of society. It's not the political party. It's not the state. It's not the city. It's none of that. No, it's the family. Okay, the family is the model, right? Not even the individual anymore. I used to be a strict individualist, but I realized that's because I was a child of neglect and abandoned by my parents, and so I felt like, fuck family, man. But no, now that I'm older. Now that I'm not trying to start a family, like have kids, but I have a family. You know what I mean? I have love in my life. I realize that is the most important thing. And I hope that you have love in your life. And I hope that you don't listen to the government when they tell you to not see your family, right? You're not a Nazi if you go see your family, okay? You're not a Nazi if you not see your family either, but I'm just saying, that's the most important thing. They could die anyways without you seeing them. What if they died anyways and then you didn't see them? And then what do? You blame it on people not wearing masks, right? How convenient that you have an enemy to blame for things outside of your control. Kind of like the Nazis did with the Jews, but, not allowed to say that. Anyways, what am I allowed to say? I can say, come follow me on Instagram and Twitter. I'm thinking about I made a Parler account, but it's a wild mess on there. The only people talking on there seems to be Alex Jones and Milo Yiannopoulos, which is fine. It's entertaining, but I don't see it as some kind of white supremacist haven. I mean, I'm sure there are, because where else can they go? But I don't know. But we'll see if Parler picks up. I might start doing more shit on there. But for now, please follow me on Instagram, Twitter. Please follow me on Spotify. Follow this podcast. Subscribe to it on YouTube. Go to rojankim.com. Thank you so much. Happy Thanksgiving.